That's what happens when you make a city SUV off-road capable. And welcome to this latest video edition here at Jonas. We're really thrilled to share with you our initial impression of the XC30 Cross Country. In another first impression, we won't just show you the car statically today. No, we'll also go together on the ice track to find out how off-road capable a vehicle with 19mm more height actually is. With one or two plastic elements, and we'll see if it's worth investing in the full equipment plus €2,000 to then acquiring this model here and spending an additional few €100 to perhaps purchase a roof rack, a roof tent, or various other accessories. That's what today is all about, because this is one of the best-selling electric cars in Europe right now. And if there's a special edition, we'll take a look at it. Briefly, maybe a bit about why the vehicle is even called Cross Country. Volvo used to primarily offer station wagons, but over time, SUVs gained popularity and took over. But before that, the wagon variants already existed as Cross Country. And from that came the XC results, which are now featured, for example, in the combustion engine SUVs. Thus, XC actually always stands for cross country. Meanwhile, there are now the EX models to essentially usher them into the electric age. You've heard now, there used to be the V70 Cross Country, and then it became the SUV, the XC60, 90, whatever all the combustion ones are called. And when an SUV, which is already raised, still needs an XC designation for cross country, then it really gets interesting. And then there are additional components like this matte black front bumper, for instance. I really enjoy the look here, especially due to this unique texture that draws its inspiration from the highest mountain in Sweden. We've already seen this in other Volvo models, for example, with the EX40 or EC40 interior. I think it's really cool to have a graphic on the outside here now. Some adjustments were also made in the lower area so that the car just looks more massive. And maybe you can already notice from up there, the car is overall slightly taller in height. This is partly due to the rims. The vehicle comes standard with newly designed 19-inch rims, and with a larger diameter, they ensure that the car is about 7mm higher. Then, the suspension has been reworked and overall is 12mm higher, which means the vehicle is 19mm higher. With a ground clearance of 19 centimeters, it's decent. For comparison, the EX40, which we've shown you several times on the channel, it features a ground clearance of 175 millimeters, making it 1.5 centimeters higher. It's designed to be flatter, yet it's intended to have a somewhat more off-road friendly appearance, aided by the offset wheel arches and an overall look that suggests, I'm going into the woods, I'm heading somewhere adventurous. However, Volvo itself insists, and I think it's crucial to stress this point, that it isn't a vehicle for crossing deserts or undertaking massive adventures. No, it's mainly for urban driving, but you might want to take it on a weekend trip to the countryside, which I find quite intriguing and appealing that Volvo is now presenting itself as a lifestyle brand. Because they say anyone who buys the EX30 Cross Country will also have the chance to participate in experiences. For instance, on weekend excursions with fellow EX30 cross-country owners or participants. Personally, I think that's really quite smart. Do you think the €57,300 price tag is worth it? Share your thoughts below. That's the base price. There's nothing optional in the car. Everything is always included. And that also means the large battery, which is 69 kilowatt-hours gross and 66 kilowatt-hours usable capacity with 428 horsepower and 543 Newton meters. So everything that Volvo was able to incorporate into this vehicle is genuinely included here. The WLTP figure is a little lower, around 420 kilometers instead of 450. It's also due to the aerodynamics. If the vehicle is higher, it consumes a bit more. That's fine. So 25 kilometers by WLTP, you'll feel that every day. Barely noticeable. It goes up from 17.3 to 18 kilowatt hours. That's a bit higher, at least for the standard consumption. Honestly, I personally think the look is really good. What do you guys think? Feel free to write it in the comments. The regular EX30 isn't selling that well in Europe right now because they've skipped a head-up display or basic info display inside the cabin, and everything's just running on this central multimedia screen. No, mainly because it offers great value. I could only show you the basic version initially. From just under €40,000, you get quite a bit of equipment included, and even the basic battery was indeed pretty decent. So, why should one decide to spend over 17,000 euros more for the cross-country model variant? I think, for one, that a majority of people will opt to lease these vehicles just like they do with the base models. I can speak from personal experience. My parents lease an EX30 with a big battery and rear-wheel drive. And then, of course, the price point is a whole different matter, but I would almost argue that such a cross-country version can also come across as a bit more emotional. There are these add-on parts here now, like the wheel arch trims, for example. There's a genuinely lovely insert located up here which you don't incorporate with the EX40 model, for instance. The EX30 has this up here. I find that really cool. Plus those 19-inch matte black rims. Yes, they adjust the whole thing a bit. By the way, all colors are available, just like the standard models, except for yellow. They decided that while it's off-road, you might not want to stand out too much, but it would also be quite amusing to see this in yellow. However, I think the look and also those mud flaps really do the car justice. It accentuates it and shows what's possible. I also find it quite cool that you can see what's happening in the new model year here. Just like with the X90, you now have not only the model designation but also the engine. I think it's really cool because this twin performance really makes an impression, so you can always recognize it when you're driving behind it. With whom you're dealing here, and I think with 3.7 seconds from 0 to 100 with this appearance, there aren't many other models in the segment. The car continues to be charged from the rear left and can now spiritually charge with 22 kilowatts in this variant, and thanks to around 200 kilowatts. DC in 26 minutes from 10 to 80%. Also, an important point when we talk about the new model year, which has actually been there all along, but no one was aware. The heat pump is standard in all versions with the larger battery pack. Dad, if you're watching this now, please don't get upset. I just found out today, because some dealers have been saying beforehand that you need the Ultra configuration version, which includes the glass roof and a few other additional exterior features. That are mainly to have the heat pump. That's not true, they always exist. As soon as you opt for the larger battery, then you've heard it here. However, I truly find it very important, and especially considering the conditions here, it definitely makes a big difference if you have a heat pump included. And the product expert just told me they deliberately decided not to include a heat pump with the small battery. There's also no option for that, with the thought that people already know how to handle their electric car. Having a small battery often means charging more frequently, possibly at home, and making shorter trips to work. And then a heat pump is not quite as important, at least according to him. And before I get completely snowed in here, I'd say that's it from the outside. Feel free to write in the comments what you think about it. Also, back here with this matte black element and its rough appearance. I think it's great. What do you think? Comment below. I'll hop in and we'll take a spin. That's exactly why we're out here in Lapland, situated on a vast frozen lake. Beneath us lies 75 centimeters of thick ice, and on top we have several electric cars. 2 EX30 Cross Country, several EX90 models, which we also had the chance to drive to fully experience the differences. And now we can try out what the car can do. Before that, I want to quickly show you a software feature, because you can now set themes in the driving section of the settings. Once impossible. Now there's the performance operator, all-wheel drive mode is available, and you can now optionally turn ESC either on or off here, which provides me with the opportunity to explore various different scenarios. The ESC system isn't entirely off, to be completely honest, but very soon we'll thoroughly examine it on the ice. Before that, let's briefly cover the interior. It has typical Volvo EX30 features with a Harman Kardon system up front, which is quite stylish. Functions as a kind of soundbar situated beneath the windshield, and within, we discover an intriguing combination of flux, that's this material here on the eyeboard. I think it's pretty cool, it's something new and a recycled natural material. And Nordico, for instance, these are the seats, a combination of fabric and synthetic leather in a green-gray sort of look. Well, I like the interior. You can get the basic version in blue, and then there are various trim options, but this looks really chic. The ambient lighting, nicely done here, also in the dashboard, and what I find are comfortable seats, which are also nicely electrically adjustable here. In the cross-country version, at the back, you don't have too much space, similar to the regular version. That's enough for shorter trips. I wouldn't do longer stretches. I wouldn't want to be traveling as a family of 4 or something like that. Simply because you're not as comfortably seated and the legroom to the front seats isn't the best. Here you have a lot of space. An option to set down your phone or a drink. And also importantly, no driver info display. That means I'll have to look over here right away. How fast am I going now? What are these systems doing? It's clearly visible here, but you get used to it quickly. I always experience this myself when we have the cars for a week or two. You tend to look here quickly, even though it would be nice to at least have a number visible somewhere. Just a brief look at the interior here. We switch to drive and set off on our journey. By the way, the suspension system is not only slightly higher, but also specifically adjusted in terms of the springs. We have front springs that are 8% softer and rear ones that are 13% softer than the standard EX30. Do I notice it? To be honest, not particularly here, mainly because I haven't spent the entire last week driving the EX30 to keenly assess how effective it truly is and what kind of noticeable difference it actually makes. But driving on ice is always a different experience. It should be mentioned that we have spikes on the tires here, so we're not driving on regular winter tires. But we have spikes on them to get a little more grip, and you can really have a great deal of fun with it. I mean, 428 horsepower, that speaks for itself and shows that you can really and would prefer using a performance variant to manage even more extreme situations. A little drifting, letting the rear swing out a bit, playing with the recuperation. By the way, in this car, they only offer normal settings like classic recuperation and one-pedal driving. The automatic, like the EX90 for instance, isn't available here due to the Geely platform, which it ultimately is, unfortunately. Even though I'm quite sure that most of the EX30 Cross Country buyers and therefore will often find themselves driving around on snow and ice in this area. So it's quite amusing and interesting to see how the car performs. It controls in many places where you think, now you could actually still. Then there's a brief clicking in the fuse box, and you can feel the ESC working hard. It's still on, mind you, but it still allows the car to handle the curves well. And here it starts again. He's doing well. One more try with ESC out. What's going on there? It's not fully turned off, but the car is noticeably wobbling around quite a bit more. I can let the rear end swing out a bit more here, and I definitely need to be extra cautious to avoid ending up either in the ditch or crashing against the wall. Earlier, we had mentioned that you should aim to avoid causing the puff effect. And that's of course when the car lands in the mass of snow, the snow gets completely thrown up, and you can't see the car anymore because of all the snow. In. Yes, we're sitting right in the middle. Not quite high enough. We are coming. Thank you. That's exactly what I meant to say. It's truly amazing and quite fascinating the difference you notice when ESC can only intervene in an alternative manner and doesn't get to constantly regulate the system, impacting the car's behavior quite significantly. So it shows how much good ESC does in reverse. Because it's not like you're being regulated here and they're trying to take the fun out of driving. No, it's really about observing what happens when you turn off the ESC and understanding what modern cars are actually designed to do in order to keep you safely on track. Can you honestly notice the 19mm higher suspension system? Truth be told, no, but it's also quite challenging to determine without a direct comparison. Sure, an EX40 with just a slightly lower suspension system certainly wouldn't handle this as smoothly, and you can already tell that in snowy conditions, you may not reach the suspension limits nearly as quickly as you normally would. But that's something that mostly concerns the aesthetics and the meticulous fine-tuning of the suspension system, which, to be perfectly honest, I can't really figure out or assess on a track like this. He looks a bit sturdier, has a bit more presence, and above all, you can also play more with it. You have to decide for yourselves if it's worth it in the end. Back in the warmth, it's time for a conclusion. For me personally, the Cross Country is a really cool option to consider. Sure, one could argue that you just take some matte black foil, apply it to the front and back, and then you've got the look. The slightly raised suspension and the characteristics we had the opportunity to demonstrate to you on the lake make a truly significant difference and add to the overall appeal of the vehicle. That's always the issue with these special variants. There used to be a Cross Polo, and various manufacturers have somewhat more off-road-like vehicles. Volvo claims, by the way, that they were the ones who originally developed it first. You're welcome to write that in the comments, but considering the history we discussed earlier, they could truly have a valid point. Now, it's a car that's very popular, especially because of the price point. I mentioned it earlier, and that makes it difficult for me to gauge whether it will also be a success as a cross country. But if you look at the streets, you will notice that Volvo's station wagon models frequently drive around as cross-country versions. That seems promising and could very well ensure it'll be seen around here much more frequently. I'm curious to hear what you think. I'm very happy to be here to show you the car like this. It's always something special in the area, so thanks to Volvo at this point that this was possible. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. And otherwise, we'll see you again in one of the next videos if you've subscribed, or up here with the EX30 in the basics and down here with the EX90.